So I don't know if King Hassan's presence concealment actually works on real people because I completely forgot this banner was even out. Like in the hype of Gouda Gouda 4 coming out and with the hype of Castoria returning on the JP version of the game, this assassin among assassins just went completely unnoticed by me. Even though he's like not actually bad or anything, like I have nothing against Hassan, I just completely forgot that he came out. And plenty of you in the comments were like, hey man, where's the King Hassan video? So I'm here to do my video on Hassan. I did not, well, I can't say that I didn't forget about him because I completely did. But I choose to believe that his presence concealment was so strong that he just went completely undetected by me. Anyway, if you enjoy FGO videos, I upload these videos every single day, and all I ask for in return is a like on the video and a subscribe to the channel. If you're feeling extra feisty though, you can click that join button and become a channel member. But with that being said, let's start off by looking at King Hassan's hits, which actually for once I can say that someone has a very powerful quick card, because usually it's like some saber with like 10% star gen. I'm like, you can click their quick card and gen a few stars here and there, like nothing too crazy. But King Hassan actually does, as an assassin, have a pretty crazy quick card. With 25.5% star gen and 5 hits on his quick card, if you click this quick card, you are going to gen a decent amount of stars, like just off of that. Like that I can guarantee. We'll touch up on his passive skills later, but also do note that as an assassin, he does have a passive skill buffing his crit star generation rate as well. So his crit star generation rate with this quick card is actually really insane. And it kind of has to be because he has this reputation as a solo servant. And you can kind of already get that vibe from his deck because you see that quick card, you're like, okay, he can gen a lot of stars for himself so that way he can get a crit with that arts card that has 3 hits and has 1% NP charge per attack. Meaning you can basically refund your entire NP with an arts crit, which again, you're gonna need something like that as a solo servant. But again, at the same time, you're guaranteed to always have that arts card if you're using him in a solo situation because you only have your 5 cards. Then you have 3 buster cards to make sure you're always doing big damage. And then again, the 6 hits on the extra attack is really meant to maximize his strength and brave chains. And usually one of the weaknesses of the extra attack is while it is a composite card, it can't do any crits, so you can't crit the NP gen, but with 1% NP gen and 25% star gen, that extra attack is actually going to be quite helpful in genning NP and genning stars. So already, if you're looking at his deck, especially from like a solo perspective, it's really, really rock solid because he has everything he needs to be a very effective solo servant. But if you want to pair him with, say, someone like Merlin, he's also going to be very good getting the benefits from the extra NP gen, the extra crit damage, the extra star gen, all that good stuff. It's just the way the deck is built already and the way that that King Hassan is a very famous solo servant, you can kind of already see why he wants to be in that scenario. Because really, you just click the Buster Quick Arts every single time and you're genning pretty much everything you could ever possibly want. Then when you have a ton of crit stars, then you just do a triple Buster chain and kill everybody. But let's look at his skills and see how his skills complement this style of gameplay. Now, his first skill was one of the most powerful guts in the game, lasting 5 turns and reviving him with 5,000 HP on a 7-turn cooldown. But thankfully, with his rate up right now on NA, we have the extremely powerful buff that he received on the JP version of the game, which is now giving him a whole host of effects. So it still has the insanely powerful guts, nothing about that has changed at all. But basically what it gives him is it now gives him this Abyss of Death buff for 5 turns that's giving him a 30% buster buff for those 5 turns, and then giving him this little extra on guts activation effect. So whenever he activates his guts, he trades the 30% buster buff for a 50% buster buff that only lasts 1 turn. He charges his NP gauge by 20%, and then basically just obliterates whatever's in front of him. Because let's also remember that he has a third skill that also has a massive buster buff, so he's going to be hitting really hard if you can time this correctly. But even outside of that, this is now going to allow him to have 80% buster buffs even without this on buff activation. And the fact that it also gives him a 20% gauge, which I know some people were mad about because, it wasn't, oh, I just click the button and then he gets 20% battery. I can't use him to farm. It's like he's meant to be a solo servant. So the fact that he has a way to get extra damage and extra battery, which, he didn't really already need anyway. He already gens a massive amount of NP with an arts crit, but the fact that they just gave him that little bit of extra NP gen as well is super powerful. So again, if you realize that this is for a servant that's meant to do harder content, meant to be a survivalist, even meant to just be a solo servant in general, which I mean, I guess is kind of a dying art, but there are people that still enjoy bringing Gramps out to fight these really hard enemies and see if they can solo with him. And this skill just further helps him out just massively by giving him more consistent damage and then giving him an additional effect whenever his guts does activate. I think the only unfortunate thing is that if you want consistency, you're losing out on that 30% buster buff for 5 turns if you proc the guts, because then you trade that out for the 50% for 1 turn. So that is the one unfortunate aspect of it, but if it's timed correctly, you could actually take advantage of it. If your buster buff is about to wear off and then you swap it out, you could actually get a lot of really big damage. So at the end of the day, it's all about timing. Now his second skill, again, feeding into this survivalist type of gameplay, it's giving him a whole host of different effects. 100% debuff resistance for 3 turns, a nice but not too thick HP recovery of 2500, 40% defense for 1 turn, and then 20% attack for 3 turns, all on a 5-turn cooldown. So let's break this down. That debuff resistance is to kind of ensure that he's not going to get stunned, charmed, attack lowered, defense lowered, all that good stuff. It's supposed to kind of help him be a survivalist servant, since as a solo servant, if he gets stunned or charmed for 1 turn, that can make it or break it, right? That's very crucial because every turn counts. So they're basically trying to make him immune from debuffs. Again, his passive skill is also kind of tied to this. We'll talk about those later. Giving him some HP recovery is supposed to help him stay in the fight a bit longer. If you proc your guts and then this HP skill, you'll then be back up to 7500 HP, which is a little over half, so it's not too bad. I wish the 40% defense lasted more than 1 turn, but I guess they didn't want you to cheese with max defense, where you get up to 100% defense and you literally take no damage. I guess they're trying to prevent that. So it's still nice for that 1 turn that you have 40% defense to really cut down on attacks, but it is unfortunate that it only lasts 1 turn. Maybe they could have gave him damage cut or something, I don't really know. Maybe there's another way they could try to balance this to kind of make it last a bit longer. But then the 20% attack is nice, it's like a kind of standard attack buff. It's like a charisma or something just for himself. It does multiply into the buster buff, so it does give him a bit of extra damage. So overall, it's a nice skill to really round out a lot of effects that he would really want to be an effective survivalist. And then finally, there's his third skill, which functions as a buster mana burst because it's giving him 50% buster performance for 1 turn. And then it's lowering all enemies insta-kill resistance by 100% for 3 turns. Now, that does not mean that you just start insta-killing all the enemies, because insta-kill in FGO is very, very odd. You might get to insta-kill some bronze and silver enemies, but do not count on insta-killing any gold or servant type enemies, because you're probably not going to get that because their death rate is so low. However, I guess this is a really good time to go ahead and get into his passive skills, because this is probably the one thing that everybody lost their minds about when King Hassan first came out. He has a 5% chance to insta-kill any enemy in the game, which if you used him in that first quest where you have to fight all the Lamus when you're fighting Tiamat, you got to see that, oh snap, he can really insta-kill these enemies. If their death rate is like bronze level and you have this skill active, you actually might get to see him start insta-killing random enemies. And if you use him in challenge quests where there's a lot of trash mobs, you actually might get to see him just start like sniping people off and their health bar just disappears completely. It's a pretty neat effect, but honestly, the best part about his passive is that he's immune to charm. Like, he can't be stomped by charm in any way. Like, I think that's going to be a bit more useful in fights than getting to see the, ooh, he insta-killed somebody. In his passive skills, you also see that he has extra debuff resistance and that extra crit star gen I was talking about. He also has a base 8% extra crit damage, so those crits will bite just a little bit more. Although, again, I think that's one of the things we could see him get in the future is some way to buff his crit damage, maybe on the 3rd skill or maybe on, nice segue, into his NP. Because his NP is unbuffed right now. It does a lot of damage, so I can understand why they're not really wanting to touch it. But it is super basic. It has 1 hit, and it just has a 100 to 175% chance to insta-kill the enemy, and that's all that it does. Honestly, slap an upgrade on this. Give him like 50% crit damage for 3 turns, maybe drops like 25 stars to play around with, and I think King Hassan is absolutely broken, especially as a solo servant. Or if they just want to go absolutely mega busted, screw the crit stars that he's going to drop, because he's probably going to drop enough in a Brave Chain anyway, and just make it 100% crit damage for 1 turn or something, and then you just do a Buster Brave Chain with his NP, and you just annihilate everything that's in his path. Honestly, would I say that King Hassan is a must summon? Probably not, especially if you're a long-term player and you already have someone like Shiki or you can make use of like 100 personas, or even the 2-star Fap Arm Hassan. I think he's pretty good. I had to use him for the longest time as my main assassin, and he does the job pretty well. He's not really a need servant though. Again, like I was saying, soloing is kind of a dying breed in FGO right now. They really want you to use like actual team comps. Again, that makes them more money if you have to buy more servants to make an effective team. If they made it to where you could just solo everything in the game, which again, I think you could pretty much do for most fights still. But if you can solo everything, that does hurt their bottom line because they want you to have to use a lot of different servants and have to summon for all these different characters. But in this meta, King Hassan can still get the job done, especially if he's fighting riders where he has type advantage. He can really do a lot of work, but I've seen people do solos against like neutral enemies as well, because King Hassan is just built very, very well. So if you watched Babylonia or read Babylonia and you really liked his character and he's just like a must-have for you, then go ahead and summon for him. He's not a bad servant. He's not a must-have by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, I have him and I think he's decent, but I don't pull him out all that often. Just keep in mind that you're wary of what's coming out after King Hassan and after Gudagooda 4. We have Summer 3 rerun, then we'll have Anniversary, then Summer 4, and then Scotty will come out on Raid Up sometime after that, and then Space Ishtar is coming out after that. So there's a ton of very high quality servants that you do need to be looking out for. But again, if he's one of your favorites and you really do like Gramps, then go ahead and summon for him. Throw a few multis at it, especially if you have a ton of Saint Quartz to spare. I know it's really ironic coming from the FGO guy saying, hey, you got Saint Quartz to spare, but there's some people that have like 3k Saint Quartz saved up and they don't know what to spend it on. And if you really like the character and you want to spend a couple multis, go ahead and try to get your boy Gramps. But with that being said, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. Let me know your thoughts on Gramps. Leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. Links are down in the description down below if you want to join the Discord or follow my Twitter, all that other good stuff. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day. Peace late, guys.